is Bucky Kennedy, who is chairman of the Committee on Nominations, for a report. You know, we're in Birmingham and traffic is really, really bad, so we're gonna give Bucky a minute to get up there.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to thank all who served on the 2019 Committee on Nominations for their attention and thoughtful efforts to bring before Southern Baptists a very diverse and capable group of fellow Southern Baptists who will serve our institutions well for the call and cause of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I would especially like to thank Ms. Becky Chandler, who's been working and serving through and for the Executive Committee for 44 years and over 20 years in the work of the Committee on Nominations, which was a blessing to us, and we are thankful for her work. This year was historic in that Alaska, North Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Montana, Hawaii, Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming nominated individuals from their state to serve on the International Mission Board for the very first time. That's great. As a group, the average CP giving of the nominees was 7.25%. 32% of the nominees are female or non-Caucasian. The nominees are represented by laity, bivocational, those serving in various staff positions and lead pastors. We have several nominees that are serving in newly planted churches and those from well-established churches. One of our nominees is a church planter who pastors a church of 35 while working as a maintenance man in a local school in the Rural Plains state. I would tell you that the conversation of diversity is starting to yield a culture of diversity and a spirit of unity. I had the pleasure of working with Baptists who are Asian, African American, Latino, and Caucasians, along with some Alabama fans still in recovery from their orange crush. I'm sorry, I don't know how sorry, Mr. President, that came from someone in South Carolina. I don't know. I don't. And as a Georgia fan, I'm just telling you, I understand the pain. All right, there you go. But it was a Georgia guy who led Clemson. I'm just going to say that. So anyway, moving right along, before I get called out of order, I would tell you what I experienced through working with this committee is what I believe every Southern Baptist really wants, an opportunity to come together, work together for a cause bigger than any Southern Baptist church or church member, the cause of Christ in reaching every tongue and every tribe. Mr. President, I move for the adoption of this report from the Committee on Nominations.
Okay, the question is on the adopting of the report by Dabo Swinney from the Committee on Nominations. Did I get your name wrong? I'm sorry. As printed in the convention bulletin. Are you ready for the question? All right, those... Microphone 8A, do you have a point of order?
Yes, I do, Mr. President. My name is Gary Herod. I am a messenger from Woodridge Baptist Church in Mobile, Alabama. On the report for Southeastern Seminary, Greg Pouncey, a dear brother, he is a great pastor, is nominated to be a part of that board as a pastor in Alabama. He has moved to a new pastorate in Mississippi, and I did not know if that made any difference or not, so I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Yeah, sir, I think you might be mistaken. He's in the list of people that are rotating off.
Okay, these are rotating off, not going on.
That's right, yeah, it's a good question, but he's in that list.
It says it's a term expiring 2022.
Yeah, the left side is rotating off. It is the right side that's
Okay.
rotating
Thank
on.
you very much.
Yeah, I'd be confused too. Okay, microphone 1A. You have an amendment?
Is it to this? Mr. President, I have a motion for a substitution to the Credentials Committee, and we're having some confusion about the appropriate time. Is this the appropriate time?
Yes, ma'am, it is. So if you'll
Okay.
state your name and your church and
Okay, I am Jennifer Lyle. I am a member and messenger from Grace Community Church of Nashville, Tennessee. And Mr. President, I would like to make a substitute nomination for the proposed Credentials Committee for the new at-large position set to expire in 2022, currently scheduled to be filled by Roger Spradlin. I would like to propose the nomination of Susan Codone.
so we're on page number 10, Credentials Committee, second column, for the new position that is currently to be filled by Roger Spradlin. You are bringing a motion that he be replaced by, say again?
Susan Codone, Codone, and I'm prepared to speak to the motion if permitted.
Okay. We need a second before you can do that. Is there a
Okay.
second?
Great.
You may speak to it.
Thank you so much. The initial makeup and work of this Credentials Committee is vitally important to setting the foundation of future work for the Southern Baptist Convention. We have heard countless times this week about how we cannot just give empty words with no action on the topic of sexual abuse in the church. This is what it looks like to take action. While I appreciate the committee's work on these nominations, greatly appreciate, there's a notable absence on this committee. It does not include someone from the sexual abuse survivor community. The nomination of Susan Codone would rectify that. Susan is a lifelong Southern Baptist, an active member of Ingleside Church in Macon, Georgia, and serves as Senior Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at the Mercer University School of Medicine. But most importantly, she has faithfully served with President Greer's Sexual Advisory Group as they have developed the very same recommendations that this convention has passed and continues to address. Many of you will remember her from Monday night on the sexual abuse panel discussion, as she shared for the first time publicly her heart-wrenching story of being abused by both a Southern Baptist youth minister and pastor at a church in this very city where we are meeting today. Susan would also offer something no other proposed member of this committee does. She is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Her perspective as a survivor and her biblical advocacy on this subject would equip Southern Baptists well to address this issue with churches in the most Christ-like way while still understanding and advocating for victims. Finally, Susan's inclusion would make this committee majority female, something no other committee in Southern Baptist life has ever been. It is time for us to loudly proclaim to the women of the Southern Baptist Convention, you matter, you have value, and we want you to lead us forward to better address sexual abuse in our churches. So I therefore nominate Susan Codone to the Credentials Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyle. Does the committee wish to respond?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your nomination. I appreciate your words. Thank you so much. This committee, as you recognize, was put together in the last several days. It was our knowledge in the last several days to find this committee. And so we took the approach that we wanted to represent a holistic approach to Baptist, as that sexual abuse was one part of this committee's task as we now know it. It also deals with issues of polity, theology, doctrine, race, and other issues facing Southern Baptist. And so our committee nominees were those that represented each and every part. We have women here who understand the need of women. We have people here who have worked in the areas of abuse and know of that through the local church. And so when we put this together, we understood that this committee would represent a varied point of things. And so that was our action, to represent as best we could doctrinal, theological, racial, cultural, sexual, in every way that we could through these people. And we felt these people could do that and do it well. as they know Southern Baptist, they know the local church, and they are well aware of all the issues that are happening within Southern Baptist life right now.
So the question is on the amending of the report to replace Roger Spradlin with Susan Codone. Microphone 2A, do you wish to speak for the amendment?
Yes, I wish to speak for the amendment, and I really apologize that I've got some allergies right now, so my voice sounds terrible. And
If you could state, sir, if you could
Yes.
state your name and your church.
Yes, my name is Brent Hobbs, and I'm a messenger from New Song Fellowship in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'd like to speak for this amendment. The committee has just said that they were forced to put this list of names together with a limited amount of time, and it's understandable that it's difficult to find and put as much work into this list as you did the rest of the list, for which I'm very appreciative. But I think the amendment that Jennifer's offered right now is a fantastic change to this list. We've seen some difficult days over the past few months of the convention as we've tried to deal with this issue well. This committee is going to be really, really important in the life of the SBC over the next couple of years, especially as we work out how are all these events going to, how is all of this going to play out? How are we going to navigate well and care well for abuse survivors? And having someone who has extensive experience dealing with sexual abuse survivors will be a huge asset to this committee, and I fully recommend that the convention adopt this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs.
Ask 3A if they wish to speak against the amendment.
3A, do you wish to speak against the amendment?
I do.
Okay, if you'll state your name and your church, and just a reminder that these are 3 minutes is what we allot for this.
My name is Mike Stone. I'm pastor and messenger from Emmanuel Baptist in Blackshear, Georgia, currently serving as chairman of your executive committee. In that capacity, there are probably very few people across our convention life that have been more involved in the preparation of the bylaw amendment that we approved yesterday, which establishes this credentials committee. One very important point of distinction: this is not a sex abuse committee, but as the chair of the nominating committee ably reminded us, it will deal with the breadth and depth of issues related to whether or not a church is in fellowship and cooperation with the Southern Baptist Convention. One of the things that we want to avoid is the appearance of stacking a committee. I can tell you from the executive committee nominees that are part of this report, we gave great diligence and care to that. And finally, I would simply say that 40 years ago, I was abused in this very area of life. For 4 decades, I have been personally aware of the issues on the issue of sex abuse. As chairman of the executive committee, it has been a privilege of mine to seek to lead the executive committee's actions that we embraced yesterday. As I mentioned at the plenary session in February, I was fulfilling a promise that this 48-year-old man made to an 8-year-old boy. I can assure this convention, sex abuse survivors' issues are ably represented in the Committee on Nominations report. I'm against this motion to amend. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Stone.
Ask 4A if they wish to speak to this amendment.
4A, microphone 4A, do you wish to speak to this amendment?
I just have a question that I'd like to ask for clarification.
Yes, please state
Thank
your
you.
name
My
and
name
your
is
church.
Benjamin Cole. I'm a messenger from the Emmanuel Baptist Church of Enid, Oklahoma. Mr. Kennedy, I really appreciate how you reflected the committee's perspective on this. The challenge is to a particular member of the committee that you've recommended, and I would like to hear what perspective you thought Roger Spradlin specifically was going to bring to this committee that will help us understand how it's a balanced committee.
Roger Spradlin has, can I answer that question now?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Mr. President, I mean,
No,
in front of you.
By all means.
You did call me Dabo, so anyway. Roger Spradlin has served the convention as chairman of the executive committee. He is also very familiar with the West Coast. Our committee sought to not only be strong with those who knew Baptist polity, but also those that reflected geographical balance within our convention. We're a convention that spreads across this nation. I'd also add that this committee at any time can call in an expert for any issue. If it's an issue of race, they can seek counsel from racial experts. If it's an issue of sexual abuse, they can seek advice from sexual experts. They are not limited to act within themselves. They can at any time call in an expert for any particular situation. That's their purview as any committee within the Southern Baptist Convention. But the reason we particularly chose Roger Spradlin is because he knows Southern Baptist, he knows Southern Baptist polity, he represents a position within our country geographically, and also theologically, doctrinally, and pastorally, he understands churches, pastors, and ministry. And that's why we chose him.
All right. The motion is to amend the report so that Roger Spradlin is replaced by Susan Cadone. Are you ready for the question?
Go ahead.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the amendment to replace Roger Spradlin with Susan Cadone, if you will signify so by raising your ballot. Okay, those opposed by the same sign. And so the negative has it and the amendment fails. The question is now on the adoption of the report itself of the Committee on Nominations as presented. Are you ready for the question? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the report as it is, if you would signify so by lifting your ballot. Those opposed, the same sign. The affirmatives have it, and the report is adopted.
Recognize Adam Greenblatt. Thank the committee.
I want to thank the Committee on Nominations, Bucky, you guys, and all your committee for your hard work. If you will thank them for the work that they did in putting this together.